In this video, I'll cover Year 9 Maths Applied Solving Algebraic Fractions. I'll put some time tags down in the description for you so you can follow by question number or the sort of question that we're answering. We're going to get some strategies for getting rid of fractions so that we can simplify equations. When we do this, one of the easiest ways to do it is to make everything a fraction. So if you put whichever integer you've got over 1, it becomes a fraction, and then it's just a case of making the bottom numbers, which we call the denominators, the same. So if I double this one, it will become a 2, and then if I double this one, because anything I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Now this line I won't be showing in the next round of questions because this is an optional line, this one. What I've got left is I've got x plus 8 over 2, and that equals x plus 2 all multiplied by 2 over 2. And the reason that I don't show this line normally is because my next move would be to double both sides, and that would remove the denominator anyway. So normally I just jump straight in with this line. X plus 8 equals 2, lots of x plus 2. And then all we need to do is expand and simplify. So we've got x plus 8 here. We've got 2x's are 2x. We've got 2 2's are 4. And now we're just back to balance method. So I'll take x from both sides, and I'll end up with 8 equals x plus 4. Now I'll subtract 4 from both sides, and I'll end up with 4 equals x. Next question. We've got the same sort of thing here. We'll turn this one into a fraction. We're making this one 5 times bigger. You might notice that you can just use the balance method here as well, and that's fine. I'm just doing it this way to sort of emphasize the fractions. So now what we've got left is 5 groups of c plus 6 equaling c minus 7. Remember, they'd all have the denominator of 5, but we'd remove that anyway, so we're not going to bother showing it. So now we've got 5c plus 30, and that equals c minus 7. I'll take c from both sides. Now I'll be left with 4c plus 30 equals minus 7. I'll subtract 30 from both sides. I'll end up with 4c's equaling negative 37. Now I'm just going to divide by 4 on both sides to get c by itself, and I'll end up with c being negative 37 over 4. I'd simplify that if I could. You'll be able to use your calculator, but that one can't be simplified any further, so we'll leave it as a fraction. You won't lose marks if you go to decimals, but I would personally keep them as fractions because at this point there's absolutely no error in it through rounding. Rightio, next one. These ones have both got denominators, so we need to make them match. I can turn that 2 into a 4 by doubling it, so I'm going to do that. Anything I do to the bottom of a fraction, I've got to do to the top. So my next line will be x plus 3 equals 2 times x minus 5, having removed the denominator of 4. So now we've got, if we expand that, we've got x plus 3, and on the right we've got 2 times x makes 2x, and 2 times 5 makes 10. They're negative. Now we just need a balance method, so let's move that x. Now I've got 3, and now I've got x minus 10. Just need to remove that 10. It says it's minus 10, so I'm going to add 10. Anything I do to one side, I've got to do to the other. So now I've got 13 equaling x. Question 4. I can see I can turn that 3 into a 6 by doubling it, so I'm going to do that. Anything I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. So now what I'm left with is 2 groups of x minus 12 equaling x plus 2. Again, I've removed that denominator of 6. Expand. 2 groups of x makes 2x. 2 groups of minus 12 makes minus 24. On this side I've got x plus 2. I'm going to subtract x, so honey bracket. Now I'm left with x minus 24 equals 2. Says to minus 24, so I'm going to add 24. Do that to both sides. All I'll have left is x, and all I'll have left is 26. Question 5. Now I can't turn a 3 into a 5, so I'm going to need the lowest common multiple of these numbers. If you need to do this, what you can do is you can list them as you go. So I could say 5, 10, 15, 20, and then on this side go 6, 9, 12, 15, and when I hit a denominator, that's the one to go for, okay? Or if you can see it clearly, you can just jump straight in. So I'd be making this side 3 times bigger to make a lowest common denominator of 15. Anything I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. This side over here, I'll make 5 times bigger. This does look like the butterfly method. This is the butterfly method in a way, but it just happens to be the lowest common multiple. You wouldn't do this unless you needed to, because it can sometimes result in really big numbers. We might see a question later where I can make that a bit clearer. But what we'll have left here is 3 times 2x minus 3. And on this side, 5 times x plus 2. We'll expand that out, so we'll have 6x minus 9, and that will equal 5x's plus 10. It's supposed to be a plus sign there. We'll just go back and fix that up. And now what we'll do is we will shuffle these around. So I'll take 5x's from both sides, and I'll end up with x minus 9 over here, and 10 over here. And now it's telling me to minus 9, so I might just add 9 to both sides. And I'll end up with x equals 19 as my answer. I talked a little bit in question 5 about not using the butterfly method, and that's because if we use the butterfly method in this question and we crisscross like this, we'd end up with denominators of 96, which is really big numbers you don't want to be dealing with if you don't need to. So the lowest common multiple of these guys is 24. Now if you have a look at Mr. Weiss's writing, what he would do is he'd put times 24 up here to show that he's using that as his lowest common denominator. So you can run with that if you like. What would be happening here is I'll be making this 3 times bigger to make them 24ths. Anything I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. And these ones over here, I'll make twice as big to make 24ths, okay? And so when we go in with our first line, we are saying that means that if we have 3 groups of 4x minus 3, that will equal 2 groups of 8 minus x. Same deal, we'll just expand and simplify. So now we've got 12x's minus 9, and on this side we've got 16 minus 2x. And we'll start to clean this up. So I'll add 2x's to both sides, which means that now I will have 14x's over here. And I will get rid of that 9. It says to minus, so I'll add 9 to both sides. I'll end up with 14x's equaling 25. And now what I'll do is I'll divide by 14 on both sides, and I'll end up with x equals 25 on 14. This can't be simplified any further as a fraction. A fraction is actually a better answer, but you might notice that this question in particular asks you to round it off to 1 decimal place. So in this case, the answer will be 1.8. Otherwise, leave it as a fraction. Again, I won't take any marks in the test if you put it down to decimals, but fractions would be better. Now, in the next question is where we're starting to build towards what happens when we've got x's on the bottom. We could go to the trouble here of you know, making this a fraction and that sort of thing. But this question's much more simply solved by just going for the balance method. And that's, I just start straight away by multiplying both sides by 5x, because ultimately that's what you're going to end up doing anyway. And then your first line after that will be 12 equals 5x. So there's a few different ways of doing this question, but this is probably the simplest. And then we'll just divide both sides of 15. Sorry? Oh yeah, thank you. Good job. Now we'll just divide both sides by 15. Thanks, that would have been a disaster if we had a video with the wrong answer in it. We'll end up with 12 over 15 equaling x, and then we can simplify this one. So 3 will go into both 12 and 15. You can use your calculator, but that means that you'll have 4/5 as your answer. And you do need to reduce your fractions. Alrighty, question 8. Now, question 8, this question could become quite tricky if you started trying to make all of these fractions. I definitely wouldn't be advocating that. I think in this one, to begin with, the easiest thing to do is just to get rid of that 4. So it's a positive 4, so let's remove 4 from both sides. Just like doing the balance method, it is the balance method. So your first line is now 15 over 2x equals 10. And then it's very similar to that question above. Just keep rolling with the balance method. It's easier just transposing this or just shuffling this equation around until it gets to somewhere that you want it to be. So let's multiply both sides by 2x so that we don't have to deal with x's on the bottom. And what we'll end up with is 15 equaling 20x. And now we'll divide by 20 on both sides. So we'll end up with 15 over 20 equaling x. We'll simplify that fraction. You can use your calculator, but 5 will go into 15 3 times, 5 will go into 24 times. So the most correct answer there is 3/4. Last two, these are the ones to watch. There's a great little trick here where when you're dealing with fractions like this, what you can do is you can just flip both of these upside down. You have to flip them both. You can't just flip one. But if you flip them both upside down, it makes the question a little clearer and easier and means you don't have to deal with x's on the bottom. So you can end up with x plus 1 over 2 equaling 3x over 1. And then it's very similar to the earlier questions. We'll just double top and bottom here to give it a common denominator. And we'll end up with x plus 1 equaling 6x. Then what we'll do is we will take x from both sides and we'll find that 1 equals 5x. Let's divide by 5 both sides and we'll find that x is 1/5. Last one, we can flip this one upside down as well. So in our first move, what we'll do is we'll just flip these. You don't need to show the arrows in your working out. I'm just exaggerating it with these. So you'll end up with 2x plus 3 over 1 equaling 5x over 4. We want those denominators, the bottom numbers, to match. So we'll make this one 4 times bigger. Anything I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. So I'll end up with 4 outside of 2x plus 3 being equal to 5x. Expand and solve. So I'll end up with 8x plus 12 equaling 5x. I might take 12, the first move, I'll end up with 8x equaling 5x minus 12. Now we'll take 5x from both sides. So we'll have 3x's equaling minus 12. Last step, we'll divide by 3 both sides, and x will be minus 4.